Okay, I think it starts. I'm going to find out when this starts recording. 3, 2, 1, it says. But good morning. It is Friday, January 17th. And welcome to the live as maybe I should come up with a title, name for this show. One of my friends, one of my partners has started calling this my show. It's interesting. Excuse me. So maybe I need to come up with a name or a title for this show. In any case, on this show, we are going through A Course in Miracles, looking at workbook and also then a section from the text of the Course in Miracles, one workbook lesson per day, every day at 11 a.m. Central Time. And as people start to come into the room and hang out or pass by, I will mention, thanks for the likes, I appreciate it. Phil, Richard, Pete, Daniel, and Gary. Wow, look at that. 4 or 5 guys in a row. Thanks for the likes. I appreciate it. If you do come into the room, if you do click into the live, hit the screen, get those likes going. That, of course, helps with the algorithm. You know how that goes. So today, Friday morning, the Supreme Court did fold their hand and they upheld the TikTok ban. Before we get to A Course in Miracles, we'll quickly run through this since it's the news of the day, and then we'll see if we can apply some metaphysical principles to it or some of the ideas that we're looking at with this lesson today to what's going on in the world, because after all, we want our spirituality to be practical. We want to be able to remain peaceful in the world, engage with the world, and help to change the world, heal the world, find salvation in the world, bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. So, the Supreme Court upheld the TikTok ban this morning, and I think the most important thing about this, very briefly, that we could touch on is the idea of just observing what's going on, right? So what kind of emotional reaction do I have to this decision? Or let's not forget the other part of the equation is it looks like the current president and the next president have both been playing a little game here, like it looks like President Biden decided to not be the president that shut down TikTok. Probably a smart move, but I think also part of his calculus was to not let Trump have the win, not to let the president-elect have the win before he gets into office. And then I'm sure Trump's going to have the new president, if he gets in there, right? Still have a couple days to go, still has to get through the inauguration. There's worries about that, what's going to happen at the inauguration, et cetera, et cetera. In any case, the idea is, metaphysically or spiritually, as all these energies unfold in the world, as we watch the news, as we watch what's happening with TikTok on this platform that we all love and enjoy, as some of us have gone to Red Note and started to experience that. There are a lot of energies and a lot of expanded ideas popping up, right? There's all these different things are happening. Oh boy. See, all I had to do is mention Trump, and so I started getting crazy comments. But that's okay. It's all a part of the game, right? And what we're doing spiritually is just watching those comments. User 692017-837252. Right? We're going to bless him or her, or we're going to bless that bot. We're going to bless them. We're going to love them, because that's where we're coming from. We're coming from love. And we allow everything to happen. We accept it and we bless it. And besides, Batman is here, so we don't really care about the hate, do we? Because Batman is here. In any case, the point, as we said, and look at what's going on with the workbook lesson. It goes right with the point. I'm just going to adopt the position of an observer, right? I'm not going to get caught up in things I see happening outside of me. And as the Course in Miracles remind us, these are the things that are happening inside of me, right? So we get a crazy comment. We get an aggressive comment, an agitated comment. What do we know? We know that inside, first of all, we know that's a reflection of myself, reflection of my own agitation, my own anger. It may not be about that subject, my own emotions. It may not be about that person, that subject, but we can take the comment we saw earlier and use it as part of our spiritual practice, of course. And we can see that the earlier statement that was aggressive or agitated, we can recognize that, as Course in Miracles says, as a call for love. Okay? There's either the expression of love, the extension of love, as we study this text and the workbook, or there is a call for love. In any case and in every case, then our response is one from love. So where are we coming from? We're coming from love. So lesson 17 today on January 17th, 2025. Lesson 17 says, I see no neutral things. Yesterday, we were talking about our thoughts. I have no neutral thoughts. Today, I see no neutral things. And so it shows us the dynamic here, as we will soon read, of how cause and effect moves, right? The thought is first, then the perception or the manifestation is second. It says yesterday we read that the initial cause is God, the true cause is God or source, okay? And I am, you are, we are the effect, or the Son of God, the creation of God. Lesson 17, I see no neutral things. This idea is another step in the direction of identifying cause and effect as it really operates in the world. You see no neutral things because you have no neutral thoughts. It is always the thought that comes first, despite the temptation to believe that it is the other way around. This is not the way the world thinks, but you must learn that it is the way you think. If it were not so, perception would have no cause and would itself be the cause of reality. Okay, so that's a tricky sentence right there. Perception would have no cause. If it were not so, perception would have no cause and would itself be the cause of reality. The cause of reality is not perception. The cause of reality is God. The cause of reality is the source. And the world and the body and everything physical is the effect. Even thoughts in our mind, right, are an effect because it comes from God. And then we can tune into that. We can align ourselves with that. We are created in the image and likeness of our Creator and can create like our Creator through thought. But we have to understand that it goes from the thought to the perception. Okay. And Course in Miracles is not calling the physical world or this body reality. In fact, it is calling the physical world and this body an illusion. Why does it call it an illusion or a dream? Or we can use the word simulation. I started to add the word simulation into that dialogue because it's not reality, because it passes away. Here one day, gone the next. And so we are in a simulation, or we are in a hologram or on a holodeck where one of the fundamental principles is change, things coming and then passing away. So then it gives instructions about how to apply the idea for the day. It says, say to yourself, with eyes open, I see no neutral things because I have no neutral thoughts. You're just looking around, saying that phrase. Rest your glance on each thing you note long enough to say, I do not see a neutral blank because my thoughts about blank are not neutral. For example, you might say, I do not see a neutral wall because my thoughts about walls are not neutral. Excuse me. I do not see a neutral body because my thoughts about bodies are not neutral. And the idea is to try to not make distinctions about the importance of things or what item I should look at and have this be a part of the rewiring of my thought, okay? The dissolution of miscreation and then the implementation of true creation or true thought. The truth is what we're heading for, of course. So you can see that I do not see a neutral wall. The ego, my ego, I notice, kind of goes, that's silly. I don't see a neutral wall because my thoughts about walls are not neutral. Well, it's interesting if you kind of follow the thought a little bit further, think about it, meditate on it. The wall might be part of your house. The house, it has a mortgage attached to it. Sometimes it's hard to pay the mortgage, or maybe I have a high interest rate, or I have a really low interest rate. All those ideas then are not neutral about the wall, or the wall might be part of the place where I work. And what do I think about work? And what do I think about my boss, or the person that's sitting in the desk next to me? So all those thoughts are connected and they are not neutral, is all that's being said here. And then I'm just asked to practice that sort of with faith, just to apply these workbook lessons and not judge them and not try to figure out why I'm saying this, why am I doing this. That has been explained in the book. It's part of the workbook. It's part of the preface. And again, you know, if you study the book and go through these ideas, it becomes more and more clear what this procedure is about. I want to undo the conditioning that I have placed upon my own mind, upon my own thinking. And a lot of that conditioning I'm not even aware of, right? So there has to be some way to generate, you could say, that awareness, come to that awareness. And so this curriculum or this course has been designed from a higher thought, from a higher mind, to help me with this mind, my mind. It says 3 or 4 specific practice periods are recommended. The length of the practice period may be reduced to less than a minute if you begin to feel some anxiety or some resistance, because the ego will resist my attempt to unseat it, so to speak. The ego has the ego mind of separation, has taken over my thinking and my perception of the world, and it has usurped the throne, so to speak. Ego does not belong on the throne, the higher self. The throne is for the higher self, the crown is for the higher self, and the ego is going to resist it. There is something within myself, there's something within me, there's something within all of us that resists that change, right? And that resistance can become quite uh, uh, strong. You find out that resistance is quite strong, quite manipulative also. So today, we also do one section per day. So today will be chapter 3. Chapter 3, the entire chapter is called The Innocent Perception. And the first section, which we'll go over here today, is called Atonement Without Sacrifice. The atonement being the idea of at-one-ment, of course, my oneness with God, my oneness with everyone and everything. So it is saying that principle, that idea, without sacrifice. And today, this section kind of gets into the Christian framework. Okay, the Course in Miracles is a framework, as it is explained in the preface to the book. It's a Christian framework, so universal spiritual principles are being explained through a Christian framework. But it does take that framework and change it a little bit. It does say throughout this book, and this is one of the first examples of it in the text, it does take that Christian framework and start to rework it, start to redefine some of the concepts of the Christian belief system. And the first one it encounters, or the first one it starts talking about, is the idea of sacrifice. And it relates the sacrifice, the word sacrifice, to the crucifixion. So it's talking about the idea that God sacrificed his son to atone for our sins, my sins. Okay, I grew up Catholic. I grew up in a Catholic household, Irish Catholic household. And of course, that crucifixion and the idea of the crucifixion plays a large role in that religious dogma and those teachings. And so here in A Course in Miracles, we're going to start to kind of modify those ideas. It says, atonement without sacrifice, a further point must be perfectly clear before any residual fear still associated with miracles can disappear. I love this sentence coming up. The crucifixion did not establish the atonement, the resurrection did. Many sincere Christians have misunderstood this. No one who is free of the belief in scarcity could possibly make this mistake. If the crucifixion is seen from an upside-down point of view, it does appear as if God permitted and even encouraged one of his sons to suffer because he was good. This particularly unfortunate interpretation, which arose out of projection, has led many people to be bitterly afraid of God. So, right? God is a punishing God. And of course, you see plenty of that. You can see plenty of it on television. You can hear it if you attend, religious services or church services. Depending on where you go and who you're listening to, right? We've been taught that God is going to punish us. We're guilty. You're a bad boy, you're about to get your knuckles rapped with the ruler, metaphorically, right? Going to hell. This particularly unfortunate interpretation, which arose out of projection, has led many people to be bitterly afraid of God. Such anti religious concepts enter into many religions. Yet the real Christian should pause and ask, how could this be? Is it likely that God Himself would be capable of the kind of thinking which His own words have clearly stated is unworthy of His Son? Let that stand for itself. The best defense, it says, as always, is not to attack another's position, but rather to protect the truth. It is unwise to accept any concept if you have to invert a whole frame of reference in order to justify it. This procedure is painful in its minor applications and genuinely tragic on a wider scale. Persecution frequently results in an attempt to justify the terrible misperception that God Himself persecuted His own Son on behalf of salvation. The very words are meaningless. It has been particularly difficult to overcome this because although the error itself is no harder to correct than any other, many have been unwilling to give it up in view of its prominent value as a defense. In milder forms, a parent says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," and feels. In milder forms, a parent says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," and feels. In milder forms, a parent says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," and feels. In milder forms, a parent says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," and feels exonerated with this kind of distortion in any form. Sacrifice is a notion totally unknown to God, so this is a key part of Course in Miracles is the giving up of the idea of sacrifice, that in order to receive, I have to sacrifice something. And the real principle is that everything has already been given to me. Everything has already been given to you. We are perfect, whole, and complete. And yet, in this dream, in this nightmare, in this misperceived, misconceived world, the idea of scarcity has arisen. So I don't have to sacrifice in order to receive. I simply have to give to receive, and I can give from a space of fullness. I can give from a place of having everything and just sharing everything. Likewise, you can do the same. So that completely, as it says, reverses the thinking of the world. It says, innocence. There's a paragraph here about the Lamb of God who taketh away the sins of the world. And it says the idea of the Lamb is an idea of innocence. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Is another way of saying that innocence is strength. So it's saying the lion that lays down with the lamb is a metaphor and an image of innocence being strength. They also they also, wow, there's another Trump comment suddenly. I mentioned him like almost half an hour ago, but there it is. Yeah, but we're talking about being loving, Linda. So let's remember that. Don't project, right? We're looking inward, we're not looking outward. So Innocence is incapable of sacrificing anything. This discussion here is about innocence in these particular paragraphs, because the innocent mind has everything. It strives only to protect its wholeness. It cannot project. See how that works, right? Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I responded to that comment, and then there it is in the text. The idea is that the ego, and this is also part of course, what Jung and Freud were talking about, and the ideas that were developed through psychoanalysis and psychology, is that the shadow has to be dealt with. Okay, the shadow, part of myself I don't like, part of myself I can't deal with. The trump within me, I project it, right? I throw it out because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to feel those emotions. So you're the bad guy, you, dude, not me. Instead, hi, Beth Sybil, who just tried to call me and should know better. Hi, Beth Sybil. So, right, I don't want to project. I want to look within and deal with my shadow. Part of myself that I reject, part of myself that I don't like. Thanks for the likes, thanks for the hearts. And it can, let's see. Innocence is incapable of sacrificing anything, and it strives only to protect its wholeness. It cannot project, it can only honor other minds, because honor is the natural greeting of the truly loved to others who are like them. Atonement itself radiates nothing but truth. It therefore epitomizes harmlessness and sheds only blessing. It could not do this if it arose from anything but perfect innocence. Innocence is wisdom because it is unaware of evil, and evil does not exist. So that's a tough one to swallow, right? Unless you've worked along spiritual lines, unless you've spent time working metaphysically, training yourself up, studying these kinds of ideas. A statement like that evil does not exist, is a tough one to swallow. But in reality, in what God created, evil does not exist. Everything is light, everything is love. Here, we're in a dream because we've eaten the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We think there's light and we think there's dark. And all that's being said, all that's being presented, is the idea that this idea of good and bad, one thing and another, is an illusion. There is only one thing, there is only one mind, there is only one heart. And so that's the journey we're on. That's the journey we are making. It is, however, perfectly aware of everything that is true. Innocence is perfectly aware of everything that is true. The resurrection demonstrated that nothing can destroy truth. Good can withstand any form of evil, as light abolishes forms of darkness. The atonement is therefore the perfect lesson. It is the final demonstration that all the other lessons I taught are true. If you can accept this one generalization now, there will be no need to learn from many smaller lessons. You are released from all errors if you believe this. So it's talking about innocence and its relationship to wisdom and the atonement, the at-one-ment. And it says, if you can generalize in this way, if you can say everything is one, then, and again, it goes into it more deeply throughout the text and the workbook, you can apply the idea specifically in almost an infinite number of permutations, or you can generalize it. And then every time you see an example of it, You hold your mind in the generalization, you remember the generalization, and apply the general thought to the specific. I am one with God. We are one with God. There is nothing but God. There is nothing but love. Okay? Evil does not exist, as it says here. Innocence, sinlessness is another word it uses in the Course. Sinlessness. Can I see my brother as sinless? And that does take some work. I have to apply the principles. I have to apply certain principles. I have to have developed a certain world view. And it's, to me, I call it a spiritual worldview or a metaphysical worldview, or you could call it a religious worldview. That the word religion has certain connotations that I think the word spiritual doesn't, or also the word metaphysical has certain connotations. In any case, the idea that's being stressed here is that, as it says in the last paragraph here, as we wrap it up, the innocence of God is the true state of the mind of his Son. In this state, your mind knows God, for God is not symbolic. He is fact. Knowing his Son as he is, you realize that the atonement, not sacrifice, is the only appropriate gift for God's altar, where nothing except perfection belongs. The understanding of the innocent is truth. That is why their altars are truly radiant. And we have just previously discussed the idea that the altar is the center of the temple. The temple is inside of us, and the altar is a state of mind, a state of being. And it's saying here that the altar we want to think about, the altar we want to lay our gifts on, is the altar of innocence, the altar of love and peace and joy. So we'll leave it at that for today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you, Beth Sybil, for hanging out in the room. I appreciate it. And peace and blessings. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for coming by.